In Venezuela, the candidate registration process for the July 28th presidential election reaches its third day. In Russia, President Vladimir Putin denounced Ukraine's authorities for their involvement in a terrorist attack in which 150 people were killed. In Palestine, authorities report new airstrikes by the Israeli occupation army in the city of Rafah that left at least 8 dead and several injured. Hello and welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. In Venezuela, registrations of candidates for presidential elections of next July 28, 2024 continue for the third consecutive day. This Saturday, several organizations with political purposes are attending the National Electoral Council in order to submit their candidacies for nominations in view of the presidential elections. According to electoral power authorities, this registration process started on March 21st and will be extended until this Monday, 25th. Previously, 4 political parties, members of the Grand Patriotic Poll, presented President Nicolás Maduro as candidate, while the opposition political parties go to the National Electoral Council to register the candidacies. Elvis Amoroso, president of the National Electoral Council, thanked their parties for accepting the provisions of the Republic's constitution. In Venezuela, the third Progressive Theater Festival has kicked off under the motto, "Let Humanity Be Human." A total of 180 theater groups from the host country and another 20 countries of Europe, Asia, Africa, and Latin America are taking part in this festival, which will run until next March 31st, with Cuba as guest country. At the opening ceremony, Venezuelan People's Power Minister Ernesto Villegas conveyed a salutation message on behalf of President Nicolás Maduro, saying that despite economic sanctions in Venezuela, cultural rights are prioritized and that the recently launched mission, Viva Venezuela, mi patria querida, Long Life Venezuela, my beloved homeland, to rescue oral theater tradition is an example of that. Mexico and Venezuela signed an agreement for the repatriation of Venezuelans, which seeks to protect them from the abuses of the border guards at the U.S. and to bring them back safely to their homeland. Let's listen.
We have just signed an agreement with Venezuela. President Nicolás Maduro wishes cold return to the motherland. We are sending Venezuelans back to their country because we cannot handle these amounts. But the president has instructed us that every migrant that we are sending back to Venezuela should have support like the one we are given here, like the one from Young People Building the Future of Sewing Life. So we already have an amount we are already giving to the migrants that return to Venezuela. We are giving them a card so that they can join a program, which is not exactly Young People Building, but is a welfare program.
This Saturday marks the 60th anniversary of Brazil's military coup, which installed a totalitarian government which lasted until 1985. Across the country, people remember this date as a warning to never let something like that ever happen again. Our correspondent, Vladimir, has more.
In dozens of cities across Brazil today, people are coming out to the streets to remember the 1964 coup d'etat, which installed a brutal military dictatorship for 21 years that was supported by the government of the United States. During this period, thousands of people were killed, tens of thousands of people were brutally tortured, including former President Dilma Rousseff. Remembering the coup is more important than ever now, after 4 years of the Jair Bolsonaro government, because he put 8,000 active military officers into the government. Some of his top aides were former actors in the dictatorship itself, including General Augusto Heleno, who as chief of institutional security oversaw 17 different departments in the Brazilian government, including intelligence, which is now under investigation for setting up a parallel espionage agency that spied on 30,000 enemies, or so-called enemies, of Bolsonaro and his allies, including journalists, academics, and union activists. The investigations deepen into the Bolsonaro's administration's corruption on many fronts, including the parallel espionage agency the attempt to launch a coup d'etat on January 8th, 2023, embezzlement of millions of dollars worth of jewelry, and falsification of government documents. So it's important for the left and for people who support democracy in general to say, dictatorship never again.
In Brazil, at least 7 people were killed by floods and landslides caused by heavy rains in Rio de Janeiro. According to local authorities, several incidents related to landslides and floods have been reported throughout the state. Among these was the collapse of a building in Petrópolis municipality in the last few hours. According to the rescue unit, at least 5 people were rescued while 2 others are still missing, and several people were affected. Official authorities issued warnings for the heavy rainfalls and called on the population to take provisions in view of the heavy rains. In Uruguay, displaced citizens are gradually returning to their homes after reports of weather conditions improvements. According to the National Emergency System, authorities, residents of Paysandú and Rocha departments began to return to their homes. However, over 4,000 people remain in evacuation centers or in family and friends' homes, while recovery efforts and road clearing continue. Meanwhile, the National Administration of Usinas and Electric Transmissions reported that 87% of uninterrupted services because of the effects of weather have been reestablished, and they continue working to reestablish them in some 15,000 homes that remain disconnected. Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. Other stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back. Russian President Vladimir Putin accused Ukraine of involvement in the terrorist attack against the Crocus City Hall Concert Center in Moscow. The Russian president described the terrorist attack as the country's deadliest in years and praised the work of security forces in rescuing survivors. He also added that 4 people involved in the attack had been detained while trying to cross the border to Kiev as they were trying to escape. In this regard, Russian President Vladimir Putin denounced the preparation of routes from Ukraine to allow the attackers to cross. The Russian president denounced the preparation of routes from Ukraine for the attackers to cross.
As far as the investigation and the result of this inquiry is concerned, so far we can say that the 4 attackers who hit the people were detained. They tried to hide and were moving towards Ukraine. And according to preliminary data, the roads to cross the border were prepared for them in Ukrainian territory. We have detained a total of 11 individuals. We have faced a massive attack on innocent civilians in cold blood. The responsible ones intend to kill. To shoot at our citizens and our children, as the Nazis used to do in the occupied territories. This is a special action to spread the terror, and all those responsible will be punished.
The Russian president also affirmed that the territorialist actions seek to generate anxiety in the citizenship.
Help is needed for all the families. I convey my condolences, my sincere condolences to all those affected. The whole country offers its condolence. March 24th will be the day of national mourning.
Russian authorities report the arrest of 11 people linked to the terrorist attack in Moscow's Crocus City Hall, in which 150 people were killed and more than 100 were injured. The information was communicated to President Vladimir Putin by the head of the Federal Security Service, Alexander Bortnikov. The official said that among those arrested were 4 terrorists who opened fire on people gathering in the Moscow concert hall. Bortnikov added that 4 of the perpetrators of the attack were detained in the province of Bryansk, bordering Ukraine. Additional work is currently being carried out to identify the accomplices. In the meantime, the Russian Investigative Committee reported that automatic weapons were found and seized after the inspection of the room. The official representative of Russian Investigation Committee, Svetlana Petrenko, informed the cause of death among the victims of the terrorist attack in Moscow.
The deaths were caused by automatic weapons, bullets, and ammunition. According to preliminary data, the causes of death were gunshot wounds and poisoning with combustion products. Researchers have already begun working with suspects in the crime, who have been detained by security services in Brakskin region, near Ukrainian border.
Andrei Vorobyov, Moscow governor, confirmed that the rescue team is working to remove the debris in the Crocus Theater after the terrorist attack.
Engineering works are being underway 24 hours a day. The engineering work is aimed at removing the collapsed roof. We have all the necessary means and equipment. Cranes are also on site. The rescues will also work in sufficient numbers on shift. As I said earlier, when dismantling the debris, we will see the number of dead and affected people. So we are doing our best to ensure adequate work schedule, and we will keep you informed.
Let's listen to one of the survivors of the terrorist attack committed in Moscow.
They were standing at the exit. They saw us. They began to shout at those running back. I fell to the ground. I played dead. They killed the girl next to me. Then I saw the door, but they couldn't close the lock. A while later, I dragged myself to the exit about 3 or 5 meters away, and I realized they were gone.
Authorities report that the fire that developed in the Crocus City Hall concert hall near Moscow after the terrorist attack was almost completely extinguished. 477 people and 183 teams were mobilized to extinguish the fire that continued after the attack. The governor of Moscow province, Andrei Vorobyov, reported that there are still individual pockets of fire, but that the fire has been mostly extinguished. Vorobyov revealed that the roof of the performance hall in the building collapsed and added that work to clear the debris is still going on. In this context, the Nicaraguan government decreed national mourning in solidarity with the Russian people and government after the deadly terrorist attack. In an official statement, the Government of Reconciliation and National Unity of the Republic of Nicaragua declared national solidarity mourning for Sunday, March 24th, in rejection and condemnation of the terrible terrorist act in Moscow that took the life of more than 150 Russian citizens and left hundreds more wounded. The statement added that Nicaragua expresses its deep, sincere and fraternal condolences to all that brave people of Russia and to its president, Vladimir Putin. Also, the national flag will fly at half-mast during that day, March 24th, a day of solidarity with the Russian Federation. We have a fun short break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience. You can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with teleSUR. Fun short break, don't go away. Welcome back from the south. Palestinian authorities report new airstrike by the Israeli regime in the city of Rafah that left at least 8 dead and several injured. The bombing took place in a residential area in the Nasr neighborhood northwest of Rafah. Authorities reported that among the fatalities were 3 children and 3 women, while the wounded remain in critical condition. The Israeli occupation continues its invasion of the Shifa medical complex in the Gaza Strip, where it deployed dozens of tanks and vehicles to close in on the vicinity of the hospital. Also in Palestine, the Israeli occupation forces prevent the access of worshippers to the Al-Aqsa Mosque occupied Jerusalem during the second Friday of Ramadan. At least 1,200 worshippers arrived at the temple complex to perform the traditional prayers related to this date, in spite of the restrictions imposed by Israel. Witnesses reported that the Tel Aviv army reinforced its military presence in the north and east of Jerusalem and south of Bethlehem, and also turned back hundreds of believers, arguing that they lack permits to enter. They also deployed their military in alleys of the old city of Jerusalem and at the entrances of the Al-Aqsa Mosque as part of the harassment of the faithful. Lebanon's army intelligence arrested 3 suspects involved in the assassination of Palestinian leader Hadi Mustafa. According to what was revealed, one of the main members of the network is a Lebanese and 2 Syrians who were arrested in raids last night in and around the southern city of Tyre. The capture of those involved inside the camp occurred in coordination with the Intelligence Directorate, which has been tracking them since the beginning of the investigation into the attack on Mustafa. In this regard, Palestinian sources quoted by the network revealed details of a cell suspected of being involved in the assassination of the fighter of the military wing of Hamas in Lebanon. On Thursday, before a meeting with Secretary of State Antony Blinken, the foreign ministers of 5 Arab nations met in Egypt with a representative of the Palestinian government. At the end of the conclave, the heads of the foreign offices of Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Jordan, Egypt, and the United Arab Emirates reiterated their rejection of any attempt to displace Palestinians from their lands. The Palestinian Minister of Civil Affairs, who attended the meeting in Cairo, reiterated together with the senior diplomats the demand for a complete and immediate ceasefire, as well as the opening of all Palestinian lands, as well as the opening of all border crossings. The meeting took place within the framework of intense negotiations between Arab countries and representatives of the government of the United States and Israel. We have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media: Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For Telesur English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.